The ceremony was supposed to be simple. Rows of folding chairs filled the municipal auditorium. Veterans' families, a few officials in dark suits. Polished wood podium at the front. A banner thanking service members hung behind it. Slightly Crookwin had rushed to tape it up that morning. I had almost not come. My stepmother insisted I should. She said it would be good for the family. Her voice carried that careful politeness she used in public. The one that made people assume she was reasonable. So I sat near the back. I had learned along though that sitting near the back kept things easier. The program began the way these things usually do. Formal introductions, a few practiced remarks about sacrifice, resilience, community. The words floated over the room without landing anywhere. Then my stepmother stood and walked to the podium. She wasn't part of the official program. But she moved with the calm confidence of someone who believed the room belonged to her. "I'd like to say something before we continue," she said. The microphone caught her voice clearly. I remember thinking it would be something about family pride or support. Something polite. Instead she said, "There's something you should all know." A pause. "She has been lying to all of you." For a moment the room didn't react. People assumed they had misheard. Her eyes found me immediately. "She tells people she held 3 soldiers alive for 9 hours in a collapsed field hospital." She continued. "But that story has never been verified. It's something she tells to gain sympathy. No shouting, no drama, just calm accusation." That was the worst part. People shifted in their seats. A few heads turned toward me, then quickly away again. I stayed still. The room blurred slightly as a memory pushed its way forward. Dust in the air so thick it felt like breathing through cloth. The field hospital had collapsed after the second blast. Half the roof caved in. Metal supports twisted like wire. 3 soldiers were still alive inside the debris. I remember the medic beside me saying evacuation would take hours. Then he looked at my hands. Both middle fingers were bent wrong. Fractures from when the wall came down. I taped them to a tongue depressor because that's what was sitting in the supply tray. It wasn't heroic. It was just the only thing available. Back in the auditorium, my stepmother was still speaking. "People like attention," she said carefully. "And grief can make people imagine things that didn't happen." No one stopped her. The room had entered that strange social paralysis, where politeness becomes more important than truth. I could feel the old pressure in my chest. The one I'd carried since coming home. The quiet disbelief. I didn't interrupt, I didn't defend myself. I had done enough explaining over the years. Eventually the event coordinator approached the podium and gently thanked her. The program moved on, awkward but determined to restore order. A colonel stepped forward to give the next speech. He adjusted his notes. But before he began there was movement along the right aisle. A man stood slowly from one of the veteran rows. His prosthetic leg caught the light when he stepped forward. Each step was deliberate, not hesitant, just measured. The colonel noticed him approaching and paused. They exchanged a brief look. Something quiet passed between them. The colonel stepped aside. The man reached the podium and adjusted the microphone slightly lower. He didn't look at me right away. Instead he looked out at the audience. "I wasn't planning to speak today," he said. His voice was steady, rough in the way voices get after years of surgeries and recovery. "But I heard something that needs correcting." The room became very still. 7 years ago," he continued, "field hospital collapsed during a mortar strike." He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. 3 of us were trapped inside. 1 medic stayed with us. My stepmother's posture stiffened near the side of the stage. He continued calmly. "Her fingers were broken. I remember because she taped them to a tongue depressor and kept working anyway." A murmur moved quietly through the room. "She kept us alive for 9 hours until evacuation arrived." He shifted slightly, balancing on the prosthetic. 2 of us survived because of that." Now he turned his head toward where I sat. People followed his gaze. "I'm one of them." The silence in the auditorium deepened. No one looked at my stepmother anymore. No one needed to. The colonel returned to the podium and cleared his throat. "This ceremony," he said, "was meant to recognize service that often goes unseen." He looked toward me directly. It appears one example of that service has been sitting quietly in the back of the room. Someone gestured for me to come forward. Walking to the podium felt strangely calm. The kind of calm that comes after something breaks, and there's nothing left to protect. I passed my stepmother on the way. Neither of us spoke. At the microphone I looked out at the rows of faces. Some apologetic, some curious, some simply thoughtful. The soldier stood off to the side, leaning lightly on the podium. For a moment the collapsed hospital returned in my mind. The dust. The waiting. The sound of breathing in the dark while hours stretched endlessly. It had never been about recognition. I did what anyone trained to do would have done. I said quietly. That was all. The ceremony continued after that. There was applause, but it felt distant. When it ended, people came forward to shake my hand. The soldier waited until the crowd thinned before giving a brief nod. No speeches. No dramatic gratitude. Just acknowledgement. My stepmother had already left. I stepped outside into the cool afternoon air. For years the story had floated around in fragments. Questioned, doubted, dismissed. Now it existed somewhere solid. Not as an argument, just as fact. And for the first time since that night in the collapsed hospital, I realized I no longer needed to explain it to anyone.